Hello guys, in today's video we're going to check out the best Xiaomi phones in 2020. I made this list based on my personal opinion and I tried to list them based on their price, quality, durability and more. If you want to see their price and find out more information about them, you can check out the links in the description below. Let's get started. Number 5. Xiaomi Redmi 8A, best under $200. The Redmi 8A redefines what you can get in the entry-level segment. It's an excellent piece of kit that delivers a modern design, above-average performance and fantastic battery life, all at a sub-$200 price point. Xiaomi ratcheted up the size of the display compared to the Redmi 7A, and the phone isn't quite as petite anymore. Combined with the large bezels, the Redmi 8A can get a bit unwieldy. While CPU performance has come a long way, the phone lacks graphics prowess and it shows when you try to play games. Rounding out the improvements is a massive 5000 mAh battery. This is, in my opinion, the most relevant change in the Redmi 8A. The Redmi 8A uses a 12-megapixel IMX363 camera sensor. For perspective, this is the same sensor found in the Pixel 3a series. However, a sensor alone doesn't make for great image quality, and unfortunately, the Redmi 8A finds itself lacking in this department. The Redmi 8A takes a leap forward compared to the Redmi 7A, but also a few steps back. The only downside you need to really consider when buying the Redmi 8A would be the UI of the smartphone. If you already are a Xiaomi user, you probably already know how to deal with the UI. However, if you're not, I'd suggest you experience MIUI 10 at least once before putting your money on the phone. I really like the new design and the grippy back is fantastic to use even without a case. The display looks good enough, though I wish it were a bit brighter. The battery life is phenomenal and should easily last 2 days for most users. Number 4. Xiaomi Redmi 9, best for the money. Unlike the predecessor, Redmi 8, which we reviewed at the beginning of the year, the Redmi 9 features a 6.53-inch LCD screen with a native resolution of 2340 by 1080. The quad camera system is another noteworthy feature, because most sub-$200 smartphones offer a single or dual camera system. The screen of the Redmi 9 is protected by Corning Gorilla Glass 3. The smartphone features a plastic frame and a concave ribbed back, which is also made of plastic. The back does not feel cheap. The Xiaomi smartphone has a USB Type-C port on the bottom which operates at USB 2.0 speeds. The Xiaomi smartphone supports USB OTG functionality. This means that users can connect various peripheral devices to the Redmi 9. For wireless screen mirroring, buyers can utilize Miracast. The Redmi 9 runs Android 10 with a custom launcher, MIUI 11, from Xiaomi. On the back, there are a 13-megapixel main sensor, which comes from OmniVision OV13B10, an 8-megapixel ultra-wide-angle camera, a 5-megapixel camera and a 2-megapixel macro camera, which is also used for depth detection. Even though the Redmi 9 supports 18-watt fast charging, the box contains only a 10-watt charger, which takes more than 2.5 hours to fully charge the device. Because of the very high power consumption, the 5020 mAh battery lasts only 13.5 hours in our practically oriented Wi-Fi test. What you do get is a usable smartphone with a 1080p display that has built-in sunlight mode and is protected by Corning Gorilla Glass 3. Number 3. Xiaomi Redmi Note 9 Pro, best battery life. The Redmi Note 9 Pro focuses on delivering a value-for-money experience. While the competition pushes the barrier with specs and price, the Redmi Note 9 Pro sticks to its formula of bringing great performance and good enough imaging to a price point that's within the reach of most buyers. The end result is a phone that delivers what it promises, but ends up coming across as a tad boring. The Redmi Note 9 Pro sees the company returning to Qualcomm's Snapdragon platform. While the Note 8 Pro used a MediaTek Helio G90T, this time around the phone sports a Snapdragon 720G. The chipset sports a combination of 2 Cryo 465 Gold cores as well as 6 Cryo 465 Silver cores. Xiaomi pioneered the trend of slapping large 4000 mAh batteries in phones, and the Note 9 Pro takes it a step forward. This time around, the phone has a 5020 mAh cell that's more than enough for a long day of heavy use and then some. The quad camera setup includes an 8-megapixel ultra-wide sensor, a 2-megapixel depth sensor, as well as a rather questionable 5-megapixel macro sensor. The primary shooter this time around, however, is a 48-megapixel Samsung GM2 sensor. This is in contrast to the 64-megapixel camera in the previous model. Interestingly enough, Xiaomi has introduced an even higher tier called the Redmi Note 9 Pro Max that sports the 64-megapixel sensor as well as faster charging speeds. There's something for everyone, and the Redmi Note 9 Pro finds itself fending for itself against an increasing array of quality mid-range smartphones. Number 2. Xiaomi Poco F2 Pro. Best mid-range phone. The Poco F2 Pro from Xiaomi is a good mid-range phone with a variety of strengths yet a low price tag. Its screen looks bold, its cameras take pretty good-looking photos, and its processing power is some of the best we've seen in a smartphone. It isn't for everyone, especially if you've got the money to spend on a top-end phone, but it's definitely one worth considering if it's in your price range. The Poco F2 Pro is a little on the large side, but not necessarily prohibitively so. With dimensions of 163.3 by 75.4 by 8.9mm, there are a few bigger and thicker phones than it, and while it's a little heavy at 219 grams, again there are heftier phones out there. The Poco F2 Pro's display feels pretty standard for a phone at this price point. It's not mind-blowing, but it's certainly fit for purpose and won't leave you disappointed. The screen size is 6.67 inches across, and it has a 20:9 aspect ratio, so it's fairly long. Xiaomi seems to be using 6.67-inch screens in lots of phones in 2020, including the Mi 10 and Redmi Note 9 Pro. Perhaps the company has decided it's the perfect size of screen. You're looking at 4 rear cameras on the Xiaomi Poco F2 Pro housed in that big spot on the back. They include a 64-megapixel f1.9 main, 5-megapixel f2.2 telephoto macro for long-range and close-up shots, 13-megapixel f2.4 ultra-wide, and 2-megapixel f2.4 depth-sensing snapper. The Poco F2 Pro has a fair price tag that should appeal to a wide range of users. Sure, buying a premium phone will get you a few more features, but if you don't need them, then the Poco F2 Pro won't disappoint you. Number 1. Xiaomi Mi Note 10. Best camera. This one is a very premium-looking phone. It has an amazing processor with lots of great features. The design is very classy and the build quality of this phone is pretty decent. Overall, it's a very great phone that has many great features, and the best thing is that it does not cost as much as other high-end phones. The display is amazing and it comes at 2340 by 1080p. The max brightness is pretty high on this one and the colours pop up nicely. It's equipped with Qualcomm Snapdragon 730G with 6GB of RAM and 128GB of internal storage. It's a nice performer, and you can also play plenty of games on this one without a single problem. Now, when it comes to the camera, this phone has taken the smartphone camera business to a whole other level. It has a 108-megapixel ultra-high resolution camera, along with a 12-megapixel portrait camera, a 5-megapixel telephoto camera, a 20-megapixel ultra-wide-angle camera, and also a 2-megapixel macro camera. On the front, it has a 32-megapixel front-facing camera, which can deliver some pretty good selfies. It's packed with a massive 5260 mAh battery, and it can last you for days. I can freely say that this is the best Xiaomi phone, and it's one of the best Android phones in the market today. If you want one of the best, then you should definitely see what Xiaomi has to offer with the Mi Note 10. Buying guide. Firstly, RAM. Random access memory, or RAM specs, are a lot easier to deal with than CPUs. RAM is basically how much data your device can have active and ready to go at once. For gaming, this means textures, level geometry, character models, and more. The more RAM you have, the less your phone has to load from flash memory, and the more intensive the graphics can be. Since a mobile device's graphics processing unit shares the same RAM pool as the rest of your phone, the more RAM you have, the better. Secondly, processor. The processor, along with RAM, determines the speed and ease of operation of your phone. Thus, it stands to reason phones with higher processing speed are much faster. For someone who spends a lot of time streaming online videos or playing games, opt for a faster processor. And thirdly, resolution. Resolution is an easy one. The higher it is, the better. Sometimes instead of the dimensions of a screen, manufacturers use terms like quad high definition, QHD, or ultra high definition. Those terms, while being descriptive at their core, are mostly just marketing lingo. What display type your phone or tablet uses can have a big effect on colour reproduction and battery consumption.